Our last few episodes have been a wild ride with some seriously epic progress. In just a few short weeks, we've transformed from a bare-bones skeleton into a sleek, sexy beast of a boat that's starting to really take shape. Working with these huge side plates has been incredibly satisfying because every day we get to see amazing progress. But in today's episode, we're switching gears a bit. We're diving into some smaller, more intricate projects that might not have the wow factor of the big plates. But trust us, they bring their own set of unique challenges and require some pretty sweet techniques to pull it off.
Wow, look at this lovely weather out here.
It's beautiful now, the sun's gone.
Yeah.
This is really good weather.
Nice.
Dan would have loved that one. Guess what?
What?
This is the last whole plate.
Really?
We've been wheeling for weeks.
It's been a really long time.
In case you missed some of our previous episodes, this contraption right here is an English wheel, and it's our secret weapon that has allowed us to transform our flat aluminum hull plates into beautiful, sexy, rounded shapes on the boat. That episode is super interesting, and I'll pop a link to that one right here if you want to check it out. But besides keeping us really busy with the puns, the English wheel has occupied weeks of our lives, and it felt incredible to be on the downhill slope of that seemingly endless task. Well, we've learned a lot, huh?
I'd say so.
We know, we've pretty much guessed now if it's got to come up, that much, how much to turn the wheel.
Yeah.
So before, I think we were doing it, we were too delicate with it. And now we're like, give it a quarter turn.
Yeah.
We're getting it spot on more often than we're not.
Cool.
So should we do this? Send her through. Are we calling it?
That's how we roll, Brian.
That's how we roll. Look at that beautiful work.
Literally.
Oh boy, somebody better stop us now.
Yeah.
How many steps do you think you did? Wheeling plates?
I think we did enough.
I think like 30,000? Way more than that, right? Way
How many
more
thumb
than that.
pushes you run?
Oh, tens of hundreds of thousands.
Yep.
My thumbs have never been in better shape. All right, it's beer o'clock for me.
So while Brian is having his drink, I'm stoked to show you guys something that we've been using since getting here on land, but also something that I will definitely bring back with us to the boat. The first waterproof sneaker that I've ever owned. It's this stylish little shoe, the Courtside Classic from Vessi, that is also the sponsor of this week's video. So I don't know about you guys, but I don't own a lot of shoes, maybe because I've lived on a boat for so long, but these will definitely fit into our lifestyle. And most importantly for me, they're super comfortable to wear. And not just for short walks, but for a whole day on the go. Brian actually wore them for our last flight, which was 24 hours long. How was that, Brian?
It's really comfortable, actually. I normally like to take my shoes off on the flight and let my toes spread out a little bit, but they were nice and comfy, and I think my neighbor really appreciated me leaving my shoes on.
Oh, sweet. And they're waterproof as well. How freaking cool is that?
Very cool.
So for cruising and being around water, they're great. Or now in the city, rain or shine, doesn't really matter. I don't have to plan ahead for any weather changes. And no more wet socks. I don't know about you, but I really do not like wet socks. And I think they look great. So get your pair today and discover more fantastic styles at vessi.com/svdelos. I'll also put it in the link below, or you can click the QR code right here on the screen to get an automatic 15% off your first purchase at checkout. So take advantage and get ready to stay dry and cool. And now back to the show.
The next morning, with the plates freshly shaped and ready to go, we were ready to start in on a job that would introduce me to a new technique that we'd be using a lot over the next few days. All right, we have 2 patrons' questions today. Tom Worrell and Sandy Romy, and they're both a little kind of the same thing. Tom says, I wonder how you'll get to the inside of the hull plates to weld them. And then Sandy wants to know the details on how the bows are welded together since they're really thin.
Look at that. It's gonna slide through the water like nothing.
Let's go show you. First, we'll start right here. So these are the plates that go on the very front of the bow. There's one for each side. This is going to be an outside plate. And then you notice that the inside plate is the same plate, but it has these slots cut into it.
Yeah.
Let me show you what these slots are for. So this is
Morning.
the inside, the one that's going to have the slots. And you can see how these, this flat bar has been welded to the frames. And so when it's open, it's really easy to get in here and weld from the side, right?
So that side is, yeah, it's
This
pretty
side
simple.
is getting welded, and so then the side with the slots will go up here and
Jack, you reckon?
then weld right through the slots, right? And then after it's welded up. Filming in the middle of a workshop doesn't always go as planned, but let's just jump right into the work and I'll explain the process as we go. Step 1 was welding the outside plates to the flat bars from the inside, as we would with any other weld on the boat. So far, so good. But now we move on to the inside plates. Things start to get interesting. We're going to be using a technique called slot welding. We line up the plates into position so that these pre-cut slots line right up to the flat bars. Now we're going to weld the edges of the slot to the flat bar, then completely fill it with weld to create a strong and secure bond. Then all we need to do is grind it down to a flat surface on top. Later on, when we finish the boat and do the final sanding, it will look like a perfectly solid plate and you won't be able to see any difference between the two plates that were welded on in totally different ways. With the bow plates coming on, we couldn't help but be a little amazed at how far we'd come in the last few months. Not only with the progress of the boat and my journey from total welding newbie to passable apprentice, but we've also made leaps and bounds in another area of our education, the intricate and sometimes inappropriate realm of Aussie slang. Are we ready?
I'm so ready.
Okay. We're gonna do a little sequence now called Aussie slang. And the way it's gonna work is I'm gonna do my best to read it. And then Dan and Kurt are gonna tell me if it is A, real, and B, what it means, and see how you really say it. All right?
Okay, first one.
First one, pop up in your porridge.
Pop up in your porridge. Don't think I've ever heard that one.
Ever heard that one? Okay, that was one from Rowan.
Must be Kiwi.
Good on your cover.
Yeah, use that quite a bit. Mainly old people use that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Cobblers mate. Cobblers mate.
Ah,
Another
okay.
word for mate.
Like another word for mate.
Yep.
So like, good job, buddy.
Good on you.
Pretty
well. Yeah.
Yeah, good on you. Give her a good root bait.
Give her a good root. Yeah, mainly that'd be pretty. Yeah, you wouldn't say it to your wife.
Okay, so we'll just infer the meaning from that. She'll be right.
Yeah, that's a pretty common one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's that mean?
That's a bit like your well.
Yeah?
Probably not the best food.
She'll be right.
Should be right.
You'll be okay?
Good job.
Are you taking the piss, mate?
Yeah, use that a bit. So if you're pulling the
Well,
piss,
that's probably what I was doing, maybe.
Yeah,
just
you're
taking
taking the
the
piss.
piss.
That one's not even on the list. I just
Like
said
making fun?
yeah.
Yeah.
that. Throw another shrimp on the Barbie.
Yeah, that's
That's just an old saying.
Come and say good day. I'll slip an extra shrimp on the barbie for you.
we don't
You
say
wouldn't
it.
say it.
Do you barbecue shrimp?
Well, we got
Yeah, you can barbecue. We call them prawns anyway.
It will roll the milk out of your tea.
Sounds like another potty one.
Yeah, okay.
Well, Kaz is the only one drinking tea here.
Yeah, so
I have my tea right here.
We drink coffee.
Yeah.
We've got a saying called give her a Good morning. How are you, Kaz?
Pretty good.
So we're going to throw this keel plate on today.
Cool.
Slip her in there.
That's what she said.
So this is a super tight space
That's what she said.
to weld. So obviously it's easy when you only have one plate on.
Yep.
But how does it work when the other plate comes on?
We're not going to actually weld the bottom until it's flipped.
Okay.
We'll weld the outside of the bottom, so that skid plate on the top. So we've got to get it in there
That's what she said. Or he said.
and then quarter power it out to shape.
But do you only weld the outside or can you get in from underneath?
That's your job.
Oh. Little arms.
Now once we flip it, we just have a big long arm to be able to get down the bottom to weld that. But as for now, we just need to get in to put some stitches on here, but we'll come down through here and weld it like that.
Oh wow. Okay. Cool. But before we go into kind of detail on how the keel is built, we wanted to take a little moment and sit down and just discuss like why our keel looks like the way it is. Because we have put a lot of thought into this, and yeah, we thought it would be cool to just kind of describe to you the pros and cons and how it came about.
Good morning. Just enjoying my cup of coffee, staring at Rhino, as you do in the morning. And yeah, it's actually a pretty interesting discussion, and I thought it would be cool to kind of like, first of all, talk about what is the purpose of a keel, because it's pretty different between a monohull and a catamaran, and a little bit similar at the same time. So, on Delos, we have a big, heavy, fixed keel because it really has two purposes, and the number one purpose is stability. So it gives you stability through having weight down low on the end of a lever arm. So I think it's like, God, what is it, 4 tons or something? Or 3 tons? It's a couple of tons.
Yeah.
It's almost half of the entire metal that goes into the build of Delos 2.0 hanging down at an appendage 2.1, almost 7 feet under the water, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a huge lever arm. So you can imagine as the boat is up like this, and imagine this is the top of the boat and my elbow is the bottom of the keel. As the boat heels over, we have a huge amount of weight here that's bringing a lot of force down this way, a big lever arm, and it always wants to right the boat. So that gives us a very good kind of like righting moment. And on a catamaran, you get the stability through the form factor. So instead of it being kind of dynamic and varying as the keel moves like this, it's just wide. But the other thing about the keel is it's a sailboat. And so when you think about having a sailboat, there's an analogy that somebody told me a long time ago when I was first learning to sail, and it's like the watermelon seed. So you remember, have you ever taken a watermelon seed and put it between your fingers and squeezed it? And the watermelon seed like whoosh, flies out? So think about the wind hitting the sail this way and the boat trying to slide sideways, but then it has the underwater wetted surface, which includes the keel, which is a large part of it, putting force the opposing way. So you have a force this way and a force this way, and the boat gets kind of squeezed out between the two, right?
Ah, okay.
So that's basically the two purposes of the keel. So then the decision is what type of keel you go with. Do you go with a movable keel like a dagger board, which can go like up and down? Or do you go with a fixed mini keel, which is more similar to what we have on Delos minus the ballast, because we don't need the weight for stability. Well, let's go through the pros and cons list.
Yeah.
Actually, we're just going to do a pros list.
Okay,
because
it is pros.
I think the pros of one are kind of like the opposite for one. So for example,
I like it. Just goes positive.
Let's just go positive. We're positive people here. So generally, I think that dagger boards are known as more performance orientated because
or a potential for more performance. I guess it depends on the sailor too, but
of course, and the type of sailing you do.
Yeah.
But let's assume that you take the dagger boards, which are all the way down, and you pull them all the way up. That kind of reduces the wetted surface area of the boat. It reduces the amount of drag you have. And so in light wind and when you're going downwind, you have less drag, which means you have the potential to squeeze a little bit more speed out of the boat.
And to potentially go a little bit higher upwind too.
Yeah, exactly. So if you do the opposite and you put the dagger boards all the way down, then you're increasing the resistance to that lateral force. You have less slipway through the water. And also because you can raise them, you have the ability to have less draft. So
Yeah.
you can basically, instead
a
of
no
having
draft,
the
basically.
bottom of
Yeah.
the boat be
It's
the
the draft.
dagger board, it's the bottom of the hull when you
Yeah.
pull them all the way up. And then they're kind of adjustable and tweakable, so you can go anywhere and all between depending on the wind and the amount of sail area you have up and stuff. And that's why people who are super performance orientated
Or really
need to
into
have
like
dagger boards.
wanting to tweak stuff. Like I feel like we're maybe like we love the sail, but it's also like we don't always tweak the sails constantly, right?
We're not racers, we're cruisers.
Yeah.
And a lot of the design decisions we've made have been around that. Okay, so that's the pros. I'm sure there's probably a bunch others out there, but those are
Yeah.
the ones that really
If you're
stood out to me.
Daggerboard person,
A daggerboard enthusiast.
yes, let us know.
Let us know what we missed on your pros list. I'm sure there's something.
Yeah.
So back onto the mini keels. It's just a very simple bulletproof design, right? There's no moving parts.
Yeah, so less complexity.
Less complexity. It's easier to build because you're literally just, for us, we're just welding it right to the hull.
Yeah.
It's very strong. You can hit stuff with it.
One thing that I really love is that it doesn't take up interior space.
Yeah, that's true. So that is a pro. That's my
That's
next
like
pro.
a big pro for me,
Because
I
if you
think.
figure on the dagger boards, you need something inside the hull
Yeah.
called the dagger board case for it to go up into,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that of course takes up interior volume because you've got this chunk that can't be used for living space that's dedicated to the dagger board. Also very cool that we can beach our boat without worrying about damage to the hull because we have a very thick, strong surface on the bottom of the mini keel that can take the whole weight of the boat.
So we'll be able to beach our boat, which is really cool. Like
definitely.
that's something that,
And you can still get some performance because of the shape of the mini keel. It's not just a square chunk hanging on it. It does have like a definite shape to it with a fine leading edge that will help us sail a little bit better.
slice through the water.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so when you think about the type of sailing that we do, we're mostly doing cruising sailing. We're not racing around beer cans and trying to squeeze extra degrees of pointing, especially because most of our sailing is on the ocean. So we've noticed on Delos, it's not really the ability of the boat to sail the wind that limits how high we point. It's really the swell direction. And then you're just boom, you're just hitting waves coming towards you and you're going 7-8 knots into it and it's just like smashing. So we always tend to crack
When
off
the
a
swell
little
is
bit.
big, which is most of
I mean,
the time.
if you do most of your sailing in harbors and behind breakwaters and stuff, that's not a consideration. But for ocean sailing, I think it is. So in the end, I didn't feel that the dagger board offered enough positives to outweigh the positives of the mini keels.
Yeah.
The other thing we didn't mention about the mini keel is it's a void under the boat that you can put stuff in. So for example, for us, we decided to put our water tanks in there.
Which I think works really well.
So we carry almost 1,000 liters of water between the two sides, and it's keeping weight low, it's keeping weight in the center of the boat, and then we don't have to take up any hull space for water tanks.
Which doesn't necessarily mean that we can fill that whole space with all this other stuff because we are going to be more weight sensitive, but at least it's a good place for it and it's out of the way, and I think it's really cool.
And for those of you wondering, yes, the water tank will be lined with, there's a lot of paints that are friendly for water tanks because if there's chlorine in the water, then it can attack the aluminum surface, so it'll be painted.
So that's what we went with, and I guess we're going to build it now in the video.
That's it.
Why is this so weird now?
Because we should have stopped talking like 5 minutes ago. That's okay. I'm sure Jordan can fix this. She fixes everything for us.
Back to building.
Okay. Hi, Jordan.
Welcome back to the workshop as Kurt and Dan start fitting this 6mm plate into position. Besides needing it to match up with the shape of the skid plate that will be added on top, they also need to be very accurate in making sure it's perfectly level. Once they were happy with it, Kurt places a single tack weld to hold it in place, while the clamps are used to press the plate into the perfect position. Now it's time to strategically do the welding on the inside, alternating between different positions to make sure that everything is still lining up perfectly as they go, and spreading out the heat so that the plate doesn't warp at all. You'll notice that there's a very beefy bar at the very front of the keel. This baby is 40 millimeters thick, and it's crucial to the structural integrity of the keel. As you can see, the keel is tapered into a thin edge on the leading edge to be able to slice right through the water.
Because it's so thin, there's no space for any type of support frames on the inside. And since it's the leading edge on our boat below the waterline, if we were to hit something, it could buckle right at the seam. So by adding this thick bar in the front, it gives us an incredible amount of strength while allowing us to keep the tapered shape that we need for performance. We missed filming when they put the skid plate on top, but as Dan mentioned earlier, they weld it on the outside for now, and then after the flip, they'll use Dan's really long arm to reach right down into the bottom and weld it again from the inside.
So I'm inside the hull now, and this is how the keel looks like from the inside. This is the tanks. That's the strengthening bar in the front. It's pretty cool to be inside the boat like this. You're really starting to feel the space now as the hull plates are coming on.
Meanwhile, we had another ongoing project that Dan had been busy chipping away with over the last few days. These are called the underwing girders, and besides creating support, strength, and rigidity all along the bridge deck, they also help to break up the crest of waves that will hit the bottom of the boat when we're out sailing on the open ocean, hopefully dampening some of the classic wave slapping on the bottom that comes along with catamaran life. But apart from that, they also have a bit of a unique temporary job. If you haven't already noticed, we've been building the boat upside down. There's several reasons for doing it this way, like using gravity to our advantage while fitting the plates, having an easier angle for welding, and making things way less complicated with the jig that holds everything together. So when the time comes in just a few weeks to flip the boat over right side up, we'll be employing giant cranes to lift Delos 2.0 and her 5.2 tons of weight up into the air. And this is where the girders come into play. The girders run along the entire length of the bridge deck, creating a connecting point to attach to with the cranes. These girders look rather unassuming compared to some of the other projects we've been up to lately, but there's actually a heck of a lot that goes into them. The first task is welding gussets along the bridge deck that will be lined up to the pre-cut slots on the plates. These gussets will allow all three plates that make up the girders to have a connection point to the boat. We'll weld on the side plate with no slots first, then the top plate, and then we'll use the slot welding technique again to connect the final side in the same way that we did with the bow. Now that we've got the technique down, the other aspect that makes this task a bit of a doozy is the sheer scope of it. Each of these girders are 11 meters or 36 feet long, and they're fully welded along each side, both top and bottom. All in all, that's 44 meters or 144 feet per girder. And since there are two of them, that means 88 meters or 288 feet of welding, a length that's just shy of the height of the Statue of Liberty. And that's not even counting the internal structural welding. It's a massive job, and it took Dan a few days in his welding zone to finish it up. And just like that, another week and a few massive projects in the shop were wrapped up. We would need to get some good rest this weekend because when we return on Monday, we'll be tackling one of the most difficult fabrication jobs on the whole boat, the crossbeam and longeron. So tune in for next week's episode and watch how it all comes together.
I always like to think that everything on a boat should have two purpose.
Yeah.
Two purpose.